Hello everybody, this is FC7 and today I am showing you a playthrough of Into the Hills. It's the task in the Dead Hills given by Gribbles, and I thought I would share this playthrough because I recently did a video on solo spots at level 85 and Gribbles was pretty much at the top of the list for my spots that I would go to if I was starting a level 85 heroic character. So what I'm going to do is just share a playthrough, and it all starts with just zoning in, and your first task is to kill some skeletons that will pop up as soon as you walk a little bit forward. Alright, so if you are going to try this, I highly recommend you get the AA persistent paralysis before you start. That is necessary for root rotting, which is what I'm doing to the first mob here. I think it only costs like 6 or 7 AA points, but it's necessary in these tight quarters here. So I'm going to root rot one right away and then pet tank the other, so I do have my cleric mercenary up. I didn't take the time to actually research the best spell lineup for this, but I do have Scorching Shadow, Soul Reaper's Pyre, Slitherine Venom, Phthalade's Pallid Haze, Mortal Coil, Ignite Energy, Putrescence, Pyre the Forgotten, and I pretty much leave the other spell gem just blank. And then Putrefaction, Drain Essence, and the 4 Blood spell. So I always have Drain Essence up as my life tap. And what I'm going to do is just Circle Kite this one. Circle kiting is just where you have a small space to operate in, and it's just aggro kiting but doing a circle around the mob. Okay, so the first few are dead, and now I'm going to split these 3. Just cast Encroaching Darkness on one, have them run forward. The aggro will disappear once they get back to their starting positions. So I'm going to use Persistent Paralysis and just root rot this one off. And I haven't done this in a while, so when I came back to do this, I noticed some of the spell gems were linked. I guess they did some kind of consolidation of dots recently. I don't know if they're continuing to mess with that stuff, but I really didn't take the time, like I said, to just research the best spell lineup to use. I pretty much just threw a bunch together that I thought would work. So it's not perfect. So mana efficiency, there might be a way to improve it. Okay, now I'm going to split these, which again just involves casting Darkness, feigning death, and waiting for them to path back. And watch out if you have your healer mercenary up, because sometimes they can get aggro. They can get healing aggro, but this one is fine right now, and I'm going to look for a way to shrink my pet. Let's see if I have a spell to do that. The pet's pretty tall and in the way, but I'll worry about that later. So the mobs come in at us. I'll just root them off with paralysis as soon as it's up. I'm not used to paralysis taking so long to refresh. Alright, so I guess that's because of rank 1. We'll start the dot rotation. See if I can find Tiny Companion. Just cast that. I don't have my shrink clickies with me, so I can't shrink my pet. So I'll just pull this other mob, cast some dots. And I did cast Spire of Necromancy. There used to be, like, ranks of it, but I think they consolidated that too since I last played seriously. So now it's just one spell or something. There used to be a third Spire that increased damage, but I think they consolidated it, so now it's just one, which I recommend using as often as possible. And there's Whisper Wind. Sometimes in tight areas like this, you can use Whisper Wind just to go right past the mob if they're coming right at you. So I'm going to circle kite him for a bit. Always send in your pet with taunt off. So the pet's doing damage as well as the dots. So that one's gone, and now it's on to these three, or two. And a simple split. And again, don't worry too much if your healer mercenary gets aggro, because they are able to heal themselves in a pinch. Not very long, but they are able to hold their own for a few seconds. So now I will just pet tank for a bit. Alright, so some of this fight is mana intensive, so I just use Death Bloom. And it's helpful to have a Cleric Mercenary to help offset the health loss. So there's another one gone, and the task stage has been completed, but there's still another mob or two in the way. So just get rid of this guy. And another reason to have a healer mercenary up is because there's a risk that you'll run into mobs that summon in this instance. They're the pirate mobs. The ogre pirates, I believe, are the trolls. So if you run into this instance with the troll models, and I'll show you what they look like. This one right here. These guys will summon, so be prepared to pet tank. Sometimes it won't have these guys, so you don't have to worry about any summoning, which makes this a lot easier and faster. But you really won't know if you have them until you get to that point. Unless you have some elder beads, and then you can just scout ahead and see if they're there. And then decide if you want to try to get a new instance without them, or just stick with the one you have. In this case, I'm just sticking to the one I have, so I'll just get rid of this guy first. And then on to the summoner. Alright, I know that I'm going to be pet tanking, so I'm going to buff my pet a little bit. So I'll just break root and start the pet tank. And really it just involves having your pet get aggro and making sure that he keeps it. So you want to turn taunt on, pet taunt. And I'm going to cast a lot of dots on him, maybe some skeleton pets, some rise of bones. And in order to have him keep aggro, just keep dotting him and feign death. Try to feign death as much as possible during pet tanking because it clears aggro for a while. And again, he may get aggro on your cleric merc, but that's okay because they can hold their own for a bit. So now onto the step. And I'm going to darkness the troll. Have the other two run forward. Just effigy. They'll path back and the troll will be alone because once they're snared they don't go back. So then I'll send my pet in and pet tank him again. Well, pet tank this one. Maybe try to debuff him. I'm getting used to all these level 85 heroic AAs. So I think there's a small debuff there. And if you find that you're summoned while you're pet tanking, just feign death right away. Your pet will regain aggro. So he's gone. And now it's on to the non-summoners. I'll just root that one off. And maybe just pet tank a little bit, even though this guy doesn't summon. I find that these mobs have not a lot of hit points. So my pet can hold his own for a bit. And again, Death Bloom, keep an eye on your health. Do a little bit of aggro kiting, Whisper Wind to get past him. Make sure that whenever you root a mob off that you also darkness, you snare them. Because if root breaks somehow, they'll come running after you. And always remember never to direct damage, use any direct damage on rooted mobs or else the root will break. Or there will be a high chance that it will break. It's one of the problems I have when I do pickup groups. I try to explain to them I'm going to be root rotting and the task there is almost complete. I'm going to be root rotting, and a lot of pickup group people really don't understand that when a mob is rooted and you cast direct damage that it breaks root. So here's two more summoners. I think I will paralysis him off and then just start pet tanking the other one. maybe use Wake the Dead since I do have some corpses nearby. That will help with DPS a little bit. And it's okay to use direct damage spells, like I said, when they're not rooted, so I'm going to use the tap and then the for blood spell. And the reason why I ran into him like that is because I do want the Wake the Dead pets to get aggro, which is not working right now. But if you run up to a mob that's rooted like that and he hits you once or tries to, you won't waste the Wake the Dead pets or the Rise of Bone pets. See, now that he hit me, you can see the Wake the Dead pets got aggro right away. So now that he's gone, it's on to freeing the next prisoner, which is surrounded by those 3 mobs. And I think I will start with rooting this guy off so that I have non-summoners. So I'll just wait until they path back. So I will snare this one and try to get aggro off my pet so that I can aggro kite. So I'll just finish him off and move on to the next one. So I'll just finish this one off so the task can update. And it looks like I got an AA point. But the real experience does not come until after the task is complete. The quest. So now I'll send my pet in. And I believe the mistake I made here was having my rogue pet out instead of a warrior pet. So I just summoned the highest level pet, and that was kind of a mistake if I was going to do pet tanking. Because for every 5 levels, a necromancer gets a warrior pet and a rogue pet. The rogue pet is the one that is a higher level one. So I'm going to summon a warrior pet, which would be the level 82. And it's on to the next step, which is the 11 skeletons that are on the bridge. I'll just set him aside for now. So I'll snare this one and just root rot him off with paralysis. This is probably the most time-consuming portion of the quest. Luckily, they don't have a lot of hit points, so it might help to pull 2 or 3 at a time. So while I root one, I can just aggregate the other. Send in some Rise of Bones. So these two will be finished off, and then it's on to the roamer here. Some Wake the Dead for some extra DPS. And pull another one. Get hit by this guy so that my pets can aggro him and start attacking. So finish the skeleton off and on to the next few. So at this point, since there are a lot of mobs next to each other, I'm going to use Rest the Dead, the Rest the Dead AA, which reduces aggro radius. So I'm going to use it on the mobs to the left and the right. It acts kind of like as a passive spell that clerics have. So it should make pulling these easier. And be careful because there may be another roamer on the bridge. But if you see a roamer, just make sure to cast Snare on it, and it should be easy. Okay, on to the next one. And if you notice when I'm aggro kiting, I always stop and then go left, right, which would be the A and the D key. There's a purpose for that, and that's if you don't want your spell to be interrupted when you're aggro kiting, make sure to always turn left and right, or right and left. There's kind of a trick to it. It's hard to explain how to do it. So if you ever see me kind of stop and then go left, right, there's a purpose for that. Something to do with the server. The server interpreting your movements, because if you don't go left, right, the server will just give you a spell interrupt. I learned that trick a long time ago. I think it was on the Necro forums, or the forum before that. I think there used to be a forum called eqnecro.net. This is way back in the day. So we'll just use Rested Dead on one of these, pull the other one. So we'll just aggro kite this one, move on to the next. There's really not much to say about these skeletons. They're all pretty much the same. There's really no tactic. There's just like 11 or 12 of them you gotta defeat. So aggro kite, root rot, pet tank. It's your arsenal. 2 more on the bridge. Just Rested Dead on one of them. Pull the other with snare. And at this point there's an ad that's going to come, so I'm just going to mez him quick. That AA right there. And then just work on root rotting the other one. So I think this Mez AA has a long recast timer, so it's like 10 minutes. But we really don't need it. I could just as easily be like pet tank in this one. Kind of toying with the idea of just having the regular undead Mez spell up because there's so many undead on this bridge, but it's really not necessary. It would be nice, but I can just as easily pet tank right now, which is what I'm going to do. So now I have the skeleton archers out. Swarm of Decay. I like to use Swarm of Decay right in front of the mob, right next to the mob, because then they're not just so far away shooting arrows. Alright, so the next step, oh, it looks like there's one more skeleton here. Just pet tank him. I was looking for the undead slow. I know that I have one. Not that it matters, but I was toying with the idea of maybe looking for the slow. And I know there's an AA for it, but I think they consolidated it, so all this consolidation and just messing with AAs and spells just is kind of throwing me off. I like the idea, the old phrase, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Which the developers, I don't know if they live by that motto or not, but... Alright, so anyways, on to the next step, which is the mosquitoes. So again, these are easy just to either root rot, or agrokite, or pet tank. So just swat this mosquito. And try to agrokite this one, but be careful on the bridge here because it's really hard to cast on these guys, because I think the way it works is you need line of sight to their legs in order to cast on them, and things get really wonky up here on the bridge when it comes to the mosquitoes, so I can never see my enemy or something. So anyways, what I'm going to do is just get rid of my healer mercenary because I really don't need them anymore. Pretty much done with the task. So the rest of the way is just solo. True solo. And the area to the right over here by the water is a spot where you can like agrokite them around, because there's an invisible wall to your left right here. That makes it hard to avoid getting hit. But if you go over the water, there's plenty of space. It looks like they didn't invisible wall it. So just finish off this mosquito. And it's on to the next one. There's not too many left. I'll avoid this one right now. The yellow con one, I don't want to mess with him right now. So the yellow con mosquito is the placeholder for the named, and the way that names spawn in these instances is kind of different, because you have to get to a certain point in the task in order for a name to pop, and it will replace one of the mobs that are in the zone with a named. And the reason they did that was because when these adventures, these heroic adventures first came out, people were going into instances and looking for a named, and if the named was not up, then they would just get a new instance where one was up, so they had to do some kind of nerfing to it. And I think a level 85 could solo the named mosquito, but I'm not sure. But I just avoid it altogether when I'm doing these. So we'll just finish off these two. And there's one there. So we'll just finish up this guy. And try to avoid getting hit. So the small area here is okay for aggro-kiting and root rotting. There's not the most space in the world, but it's good enough. So then there's a collectible. I recommend collecting all the collectibles that you can. Just grab this one. So we'll just start the dots on him. Luckily, none of the mobs in the zone here seem to be very resistant to any type of the spells that I got. So, but I am running low on mana here, so I'm gonna press Death Bloom, and that'll really bring my health down fast. So I'm going to have to tap these guys with my life tap spell to get some health back, because Death Bloom, it gives you a lot of mana back, but it also takes health in its place. So if you're not careful, you can Death Bloom yourself to death. So I need one more mosquito. Luckily the one on the right did not assist. So I'll keep tapping this guy, health tapping him. And just aggro-kite. Send my pet in. But it looks like he's out of range or something. I'll just send the swarm in, the pet swarm. I'll be careful not to get aggro from the other mobs that are in that area. And again, aggro-kiting up here is a pain because you really can't see them. Line of sight is messed up. And that is it. Now you just have to hail that last NPC. And the good thing is you can just press invis and go right past this last mosquito without getting aggro and having to kill him. So the task stage is complete. And now you just run back. Or you can just evac out and it'll take you right to the front of the zone too. But I just like doing the run. So at this point, I will hail him and get my reward, which is 6 AA points. Plus I had 7, or I got 1 from earlier, so 7 total in this entire task. And then 79 currency for the Call of the Forsaken expansion. So really it's about 7 AA points per 40 minutes, which isn't too bad. You could probably make around the same doing like other solo spots at 85. Also, another thing you can do is if you have Lesson of the Devoted, you can just click that right before you hail him. That is the double experience AA. I believe it comes from a veteran reward. And I believe all characters get them now. I don't know, they've made so many changes recently, it's hard to keep up. But if you have Lesson of the Devoted, just cast it right before you hail him and you'll get double. So I would earn 12 plus that 1. It'll be 13 for this run. So here I am in Tainted West Carana, and I just thought I would share the advantages of actually finishing Gribbles instead of going elsewhere in the world to do experience. Just using that currency you get to buy gear upgrades and spells and augmentations. So this is what puts it over the top for me as probably the #1 solo spot at level 85. Even though you might be able to make experience better elsewhere, you do get some currency that you can use for this really good loot. You can also use the currency to buy your mercenary gear too, so there's a vendor for that here. So that should just about do it for this quest. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.